All right, I got a question from Chef Eric Salvage today, and I wanted to discuss this. I think it's a good topic for the show. Today we're trying the Pocket 3 here in the office. People like the light setup from this, but it's a completely different perspective than we do with the Fuji, and doesn't have the shallow depth of field, so I want to see how this looks. But a lot of people say that the Pocket 3 is really great for this stuff. I'm also testing it out without using the microphone, which I'm going to grab right now. So normally I'm talking with this, but today I'm just trying the onboard microphones because the Pocket 3 is known for being really good with this. So I wanted to give it a try, see what you guys think doing it indoors. I do have some water in my ear for some reason, and it is buzzing every time I talk. That's kind of annoying. I do love the sound that comes off of this, but this is supposed to do a great job. So Chef Eric does say, I hope I got this all right. It's very fuzzy because my eyes are old. He says, I'll be there, Nicaragua, early next year. How would I be able to find a chef job, preferably a private chef job? I'm flexible. We'll work with vegans and vegetarians in terms of where to research for jobs like Craigslist or other sites, or do you know anyone that are looking for private family chef? Okay, so there's a lot we need to talk about here. So the first is we're going to assume that you are not Nicaraguan. If you are Nicaraguan, then it's going to come down to purely being a search, and that's going to be difficult enough as it is. We don't have sites like Craigslist and such looking for things. There is Encuentra 24, 24, but generally doesn't have things like this. This is not where you would go to look for those kinds of things, so that's going to present a challenge. You could go on Facebook, but people don't generally post job postings in that way. Everything, just like property, is word of mouth, so it's going to be difficult. Could someone put it on Facebook? Yes, but likely it's going to be very hard. A better bet, I'm sure, is creating an Instagram. That's how people work with food here, and showing off pictures of what you're able to do, which if you're not a photographer is going to be a lot tougher, but if you're into photography, could be really good, and gain some followers, but make sure you're working with Nicaraguan ingredients whenever you can, and showcasing how you'd be able to work for someone in Nicaragua as best as possible. I'm going to move the camera just a little bit to get the light now that I read the thing that I needed to read. Okay, so it's going to be tough, but it's going to be word of mouth, right? So one, we don't know what community you're looking at moving to. Maybe you don't care. So in that case, you're going to move to a community based around where jobs are. If you're going to search, that's going to be San Juan del Sur, Managua, Granada, unless you get into those really specifics, maybe Chinandega. And then you've got potentially, Huigalpa, Boaco. There are some places that do have handfuls of wealthy people, but it's important to understand the number of wealthy people in the country that are going to be hiring an upscale private chef is relatively low. You're only talking about a handful of people in the country, so this is not a major job category, right? Generally, anyone who's a chef in the country is known, and the people who are looking for those jobs are known, and there probably aren't any openings. So just be aware that how difficult that will be, and it's just a thing that there's not going to be listings for. So getting to know people in different communities and asking them about what's available or who might be interested is going to be about all you can do. Assume this is going to take a few years to really locate something if you're looking at private chefs. If you're looking at restaurants, there's a little bit more opportunity because you can go around Managua, Granada, San Juan del Sur. Those are about the only places that are going to have any number of fancier restaurants, and you can go drop off a resume at or your Instagram or whatever at all of those and see what's out there. But the market is very difficult for sure. Now, that's if you are Nicaraguan, in which case it'll be incredibly hard, but doable. If you are not Nicaraguan, then this is simply impossible. This cannot be done, and there's two reasons why it's important to understand that it can't be done. One is that no one can employ you as a non-Nicaraguan here in the country. You do not have the right to work, and there is nothing more sacred than work here. It is the number one financial crisis in the country, and so nothing is more protected than jobs. And there are, to be clear, an unlimited number of unemployed chefs here in the country. Now, maybe they're not as good as you, maybe they don't have the experience you do, maybe, but they are here. They are trained in Nicaragua. They are experienced in Nicaragua. They are Nicaraguans who have a right to those jobs. And so any job that is out there will go to them. You do not have the legal right to take it. More importantly, no one can legally employ you. If a Nicaraguan was going to employ you, that would probably be crazy because they know they can get in a lot of trouble and they know that they can hire a Nicaraguan to do it. If you're a foreigner, say me, for example, and I knowingly hired you to work as my private chef, I could be deported with you. Intentionally hiring an illegal alien, taking a job of all things, could, not necessarily, but definitely could put me on a list for being in really big trouble. You would be deported for sure, and I would most likely be. Same as illegal work in the United States or anywhere, but this is specifically not just illegal work in a place where, in the United States, for example, you know that if you work illegally, you assume you'll be deported, right? Now, maybe not right away, but eventually it's going to happen. But that's in a country where they desperately need and encourage illegal workers to get low wage earners into the market. It's a market that needs more workers. And so punishing you for doing it illegally is questionably valuable at best, but here in Nicaragua, it is the worst reasonable thing you could do. Obviously, like, killing people would be worse, but of things that aren't horrendous activities that you're just doing without the proper paperwork, nothing is going to be close to taking a job that could be filled by a Nicaraguan. This is going to check every box for getting into trouble, and so this is a major issue, right? Like don't try to downplay just how big this is. If you think being an illegal worker in the U.S. or Canada, because remember, any status you have isn't valid if you're working illegally. And if you're working illegally, you have no way to pay taxes, which means not only are you committing the crime of being an illegal immigrant, because your whatever paperwork is invalid if you work, you will then be an illegal worker as well. And now you're committing tax fraud. And so it's 3 major crimes that they will use. So you're hoping to be deported. So I can't overstate how much this is not something you would want to do. And no employer would possibly take this chance. Even locals who are not so likely to get into big trouble, still, it's a big risk. So people aren't going to do that. And there's plenty of chefs available. They have no reason to do it. It's not like they're getting something for it. Although I'm sure you're a wonderful chef, they're not going to get the value. Now also, and this is an aside, you're going to really struggle as a chef here because the ingredients are different than wherever you're coming from. So how to source them, how to deal with that, what to work with, those are going to be very different. So while a trained chef can obviously adapt quite quickly, there's going to be a lot of things that are very difficult. As someone who comes from the outside, I hire a Nicaraguan to do my shopping because it makes things cheaper. She's able to get things I can't get and get them at prices I can't get. That's a lot of value, right, from doing that. And that's something that if you're not Nicaraguan, you're going to have as a problem as well. So you're potentially being hired as the position expected to do that, and you'll have to hire someone to do that. And generally the cost of a person to do that is very close to the cost of a chef. So there's no budget for that, right? It's going to create a bit of a problem. And then you have someone who isn't the chef doing the shopping. Do they have the skills to get the things you need, right? Probably it's going to lower the value of your cooking because getting really good produce or really good meats and making those selections is part of the value of a chef. Oh no, this I need. Oh, here's an opportunity. I didn't know they were going to have Brussels sprouts. I have a brilliant idea. So I saw they had this. I saw they had this today. I'm going to do this great thing with those fresh ingredients. And if you're sending someone out to do the shopping, you're hoping that they let you know and like, well, how good do they look? They're okay. Okay, I guess get me some, right? It's a different experience. Right. It's kind of like if you had to cook, but you had to do so over a video call. Okay, can you flip that now? Okay, does it look golden brown or is it like honey brown? Like, give me a vibe, right? No, it's very, very hard. Could you do it? Yeah, you could get edible food out, no problem. But would it be the same quality as if you did it yourself? No, of course not. Right. So that's going to be an additional problem. Now, sure, if you're working as a private chef and it's really rich people, they may be like, we don't care, spend extra money on everything, but that's unlikely, right? The number of people who have money to throw away in Nicaragua is very low. Even when you get to relative affluence and people are able to hire lots of, private workers. I have a private chef. I have a private security guard. I have a private driver, right? I have those things. But it's really important that my private chef get those prices of groceries down because the cost of groceries is still significant, right? So it's going to be really, really rare that you're going to find someone who's like, nah, it doesn't matter. So that's a big challenge. Now, the other thing is you don't want to work in Nicaragua. Now, we have a playlist that goes into all this stuff because these things are generic. The fact that it's a chef really doesn't matter. It's specifically chefs are important that we know for a fact that the jobs exist in Nicaragua and that the workers exist in Nicaragua and that there are more workers than there are jobs in most markets. And where there isn't, they could move from another market pretty easily or commute. So we know these things to be true. I'm a restaurateur. I'm very aware of these positions and I'm aware of how rare private chefs are, but that they exist and have one and have restaurants. So I have a bit of insight into this specific market. So we're able to say there aren't exceptions here, but all of these things are generic. There's no real job that won't be hit with these same things, unless you're like a gold mine engineer and able to do something completely unique that nobody in country has any possibility of being able to do. And by allowing you to work here, you're going to create other jobs. You're not going to get that opportunity to get a work permit. Now, there is an exception. We'll say real quickly. If you were to invest and build your own, it could be anything, but restaurant would be what makes sense as a chef, and you build your own restaurant and you hire enough staff and you go through the process of becoming a formal, full, long-term, permanent resident with the top level residency and all that stuff, and you have a functional business and everything, then you get a pass and you are allowed to work in the country, which is mostly just to enable your business to function and you allowed to work in your business. If you don't get to that, then there's this gray area where like you're working for yourself and it gets kind of questionable. So there's a reason why they do it. And people have brought up, well, if you own a business, how are you supposed to do anything if you're not allowed to work? Well, of course you're allowed to oversee your own business. Well, aren't you working then? Well, yeah, kind of. So they've dealt with that, right? So there is a reason. So you could invest $30,000 or more, get a functional business, have at least 2 employees, and have that business running. You can't shut it down, and have that business functional, go all through that process. Then you would have the right to work. I have done this not for the right to work. I have the right to work in Nicaragua, but for the reason we're about to say, there's no way ever that I would want to, but I can technically. So if your goal is not to make money, your goal is not to do something sensible, but your goal is to just be able to say you were a private chef in Nicaragua, you can do these things to get there. But you can see where you can't go work for another restaurant, highly illegal. But if you put in the money and build a new restaurant, technically you can work for yourself. And once you get to that point where you fully legally can work for yourself, you can legally work for someone else too. So if you started a restaurant, someone else started a restaurant, they want to work for you and you want to work for them, you're allowed to do that. Weird, but you can. So it's a technicality. It's important because someone will jump in and say, no, there's a way you could do it, but it makes no sense. Why are you looking for a job if you can open your own restaurants anyway? Okay. The last thing is, what does a chef earn in Nicaragua? A typical chef is going to earn on the starting end about $300 per month, and on the high end, maybe something like $600 or $700 a month. Reasonably, a private chef will make quite a bit less, probably around $400 a month. If you're lucky, $300 would be pretty common. Now, that's $300, and assuming you don't have to do other duties beyond the shopping. People who are just private cooks but not chefs will earn similar but have a lot of other duties as well under normal circumstances. So you have to think about, do you really want to spend a whole bunch of time searching for and find a way to get the paperwork for, to someday, years down the road, after having invested tens of thousands of dollars, having to run a business, having to keep that business profitable while you go out and work for someone as a private chef to earn $400 per month? Probably not. You have to ask her, and you have to pay taxes on top of that, because remember, you're working in Nicaragua. So that's the rub, is that you have to then pay taxes like any other Nicaraguan, because that's how you're working. So that's all fine, and you're allowed to do that if you follow that process. But ask yourself, why would you want to earn only $400 per month and to pay taxes on that when chances are there's some other way you could work a fraction as much and do a lot better? For example, I'm just assuming you're coming from North America, but it could be anywhere. But if you have access to like a European or North American market to do remote work, you could do a lot of things. For $400 per month, you could be a remote restaurant consultant. You could be a menu consultant, any number of things. And I have a very good friend who's been on the show, and I will have on the show again in a couple of weeks, who is not a chef, but he is a restaurant consultant. He designs restaurants and does a lot of different things in restaurants. Like, so he's involved in designing menus and doing interior design and a bunch of stuff. He's a restaurateur, but he doesn't own his own restaurants at this time. He's worked all over the world and flies all over to do this. Does a lot in California. He works from Nicaragua remotely as a restaurateur advisor and does this type of job. So could you do this type of thing? Yes, you absolutely could live in Nicaragua. And here's some ideas. Without stopping being a chef, you could open your own restaurant. Of course, we've covered that. Probably not a sensible thing to do. We've covered in other videos why that doesn't make sense. It's very difficult to actually make money on that. But if you're really good, you could potentially do that. But that does take a bit of money. Generally, you're putting up hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a real restaurant up and running. Not always. Generally, that's a lot to put up for a lot of risk if you're looking for an income. You could be consulting with businesses in the U.S. You could be running a YouTube channel, right, about whatever it is, like how to be a chef with Nicaraguan ingredients, your journey as a private chef in Nicaragua, and just do that, right? Is it going to take a while to get a following and start making money? Yes. But could you make more doing that than you could make actually being a private chef in Nicaragua? Yes, probably. If your audience is foreign, you could bring in ad revenue. You could bring in buy me a coffee or Patreon revenue. You could sell things. You could have a cookbook, Cooking Fancy in Nicaragua, right? Do all these things. And it sounds like, wow, that's a long time to ramp up before I would make that money. It would take years to build a following, years of investment and effort and work to be able to make the first $100 a month. Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, there's making very little money on YouTube. Now, I don't sell anything, so I make a fraction of what some other people do. You could be doing things like going to restaurants on a regular basis who maybe pay you to be on the show. That's an advertising budget, not a salary budget, so you can probably get away with that. Check with your lawyer, of course. You could have ads on your show for restaurants that you like, or for ingredients, or put places to shop, or whatever. You could find sponsors potentially. So these things exist as possibilities, absolutely, but it's going to take a lot of work. But so is finding that private chef job. If that's what you want to do and you go through all that effort, you may be looking at 1 or 2 years to find a job. What are you going to do in the meantime? Just sit around twiddling your thumbs, looking, of course, but twiddling your thumbs. Or you could be using that time and build an audience and come up with something that doesn't make you leave the house, gives you a flexible schedule, and gives you more growth potential should it take off. You could probably find alternatives because you have access to that foreign market, and the income coming from that foreign market is tax-free. You have way more potential to make money as a chef consulting somewhere or whatever, and put things together, right? Maybe you can find a consulting gig sometimes. Maybe you keep a channel going, so you try to do them in parallel and figure out what works for you. But again, at $400 a month, it doesn't take much to become a consultant to the outside world. Maybe you're creating menus for restaurants. Maybe you're teaching people remotely how to do certain dishes or whatever, helping restaurants make decisions. And you could be a lot of restaurants that you work with or just one. $400 is a consultation in a lot of cases. If you do 1-2 consultations per month, you're easily, because it's tax-free, ahead of where you would be working full-time here in Nicaragua. So I know that as a chef, you want to be in a kitchen making food all the time, and that's the thing that makes you happy. That's why you became a chef. I'm hypothesizing, but let's be reasonable. It's a hard job being a chef. It's not something you do casually. So that takes a lot of passion, and that passion needs to be translated into something practical to be living here. It is what it is. There are restaurants that have high-end chefs. They are few and far between, almost all of them in Managua. Could you find some very unique value? It is possible, but it will be very, very hard. I do have someone from my channel who recently had a massive success and does get to do some work in Nicaragua, but completely unique role. There's no other person doing that in the country. So they're finding something that is completely unique. Being a chef on its own is not, and he's not doing it to make money, obviously, because there's not enough money in the system. He's doing it because it's something he's passionate about. So that's something you have to ask yourself. What is your end goal? Are you trying to make money? You got to do something else. That is not going to make money. Are you doing it because you just want a reason to be in the kitchen all the time? Then consider investing, firing up a business, and coming up with a way to be your own chef. And then if someone wants to hire you, go do that. Put all these things together. You could be making a show about running a restaurant. You could find a way to make this make sense, but it's going to take a lot of work, and directly working for someone isn't going to be it. Also, I want to point out that to be a chef in Nicaragua is a thing that you can go to school for, which makes sense. But here in Nicaragua, that is something that you can go to school for free for. All over the country, there are hospitality degrees that includes becoming a chef, as well as they have classes for waiters and other things. And restaurants are taught that they can go out to the national education system and request people from those programs. And so if you're a restaurant or a restaurateur or interested in becoming a restaurant, you can contact the government through the educational channels and ask for people coming out of these programs. There are 2 schools here in León, all over the country these exist. I'm not sure how many and exactly how it works. They have some beautiful educational facilities, and if that's something like, if my kids decided they wanted to go into hospitality, they can go take any position that would exist within a restaurant or hotel or similar, in tour guides as well. They can go and take classes or take full courses to become trained and certified in that. And then the government provides all these resources for connecting those students with potential places. So like as a restaurant, we can reach out and have a connection and say, oh, here's all these positions we're looking for. And the government's able to go out to all the schools across the country and be like, who wants to go to this location? And then their professors or teachers or whatever can be like, yeah, this student is good. They should go do that. Or they need work. And it's like this whole communication things to help the businesses get access to good workers and to get people who are interested in being good workers a path to finding work, even if it's not in their local community. So there's a really good educational framework for this around the country, and it's really impressive. So something just to be aware of, that if you're coming in, you may think, there's no chefs in the country. No, there's an entire nationwide network of education around that and placement positions. So that really does exist within an ecosystem. So thanks for the question. I'm sorry that the answer is not straightforward, and please check out the playlist because we cover each of these types of things quite a bit, because everyone thinks that they want to move and work, and the answer is you actually don't want to do that. Your end goal is what you need to define first. Like, what is your goal? I want to cook in a kitchen. I want to make money. I want to whatever. Figure out what that is, and then work backwards from how can I meet that goal. Actually being just getting hired as a chef doesn't sound likely to be the goal itself. It may feel like the goal. It may be close to the goal. It may accommodate your goals, but it almost certainly has connotations that aren't listed, such as you want to be paid enough to live. Oh, no, that won't be enough. Okay, so what would I do then? Well, that's why you got to make sure you have the goal. If the goal is I have to make at least $1,000 a month, then we need something different as a path, right? You need to think about how you could earn that, because being a chef won't do that, right? At most, several hundred. So thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. And if you go into our show notes, we have everything you could possibly need for contacting me, helping support our producer, Marcela, who has stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's going very well. She's halfway through her chemotherapy, but she does have a family to support. She's a single mother, and her kids have to live in Managua for her treatments while she lives in Leon for her job and where her house is, and she's going back and forth, and it's very complicated. She's going to be on the show coming up very soon. She's generally feeling a lot better. We show her on days when she's looking really good, but she does have days with high fever. The chemotherapy does kick her butt several days. It's in a 2-week cycle, so she'll have great days and terrible days and some days in between. Sometimes she's still able to go out. Many days she's not able to walk, and so it's all over the place. But she is seeing improvement. Her doctors are thrilled with her progress and the support. Every time you guys even give just a couple dollars through the GoFundMe, it really does remind her how much people are out there rooting for her, and the financial support itself is very important because she's a Nicaraguan worker, right? And these things, even though her healthcare is free, there's a lot of cost involved with the logistics of life and being a single mother going through chemotherapy. She does still have her job, but a lot of new expenses, travel and stuff come up, and it does help quite a lot. If you need to get into our social media, if you want to send in a video question, all that stuff is in the show notes. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff in there, including links to lots of our other channels. Please check them out. None of them are super busy, but we have them. There's interesting stuff there, and we love getting new subscribers and more views over there as well. And of course, get in the comments, say hello, ask questions there, leave your comments there, and that's where we got this question from. We really appreciate when people send that stuff in, even if it's not a video, because it gives us stuff to tackle and really dig into, and I really appreciate it because I'm super busy, and getting the time to come up with topics is one of the hardest things of my day. And with that, please make sure to share this on social media, like post it on Facebook, post it on X, put it on Mastodon or whatever, and tell someone about the show and all the information we have about relocating, working abroad, living in Nicaragua, retiring, all this stuff. We cover everything. Get them to ask questions. Let us help more people be successful in moving to paradise. And I will see all of you tomorrow.